The ceiling fan spun slow enough that she could count the revolutions between her children's coughs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the knock that stopped time entirely. Abena had already buried 2 men in her mind before she heard the knock, one who would come through the door shooting, and one who would come through the door asking questions she had spent 7 years learning not to answer. She stood in the dark kitchen of a house that was not hers, in a town where nobody knew her real name, and counted her children's breathing through the thin wall. Kofi coughed again. Adwoa whispered something in her sleep. The fever had held for 3 days now, and the medicine was gone, and the roads were being watched. The knock came again, 3 slow beats, not a soldier's knock, not a debt collector's. A man's knock, a man who had time. Abena reached for the machete she kept behind the flour sack. Her hands did not shake. That was the first thing she had learned in this life. Fear was a luxury for women who had something to lose that could be returned. She moved to the door. Through the crack in the curtain she saw him. Dark wool coat, a watch that cost more than this entire street. His face was half in shadow, but she knew the shape of his jaw. She had kissed that jaw in a penthouse in Seoul 15 years ago, when she was young and stupid enough to believe that love could survive inside a dynasty of killers. Kwame Mensah had not aged the way normal men aged. He had hardened. His mother's warmth was gone from his face, and what remained was all father, all steel and silence. He doesn't know, she told herself. He cannot know. But he was here, and men like Kwame did not travel 3,000 miles to ask polite questions. Open the door, Abena. His voice was exactly as she remembered, low, controlled, dangerous in its patience. He had not raised it in 15 years of witnessing murder. He was not going to raise it now. She opened the door. The machete was at his throat before his second foot crossed the threshold. Say another word, she whispered, and I will separate your head from the memories that brought you here. Kwame did not flinch. He looked at the blade, then at her face, then at the thin cotton dress she was wearing, the one with the mended tear at the shoulder, the one she had been wearing for 3 days because she could not afford to buy another. You're thinner, he said. I'm busier. Than running a cartel's intelligence network. Than caring about your opinion of my body. He almost smiled. Almost. That was the thing about Kwame. His almost smile was more terrifying than another man's full roar. It meant he was enjoying himself. Behind her, Kofi coughed again. A wet, hollow sound that made Abena's chest tighten. Kwame's eyes moved past her shoulder, toward the sound. No. Who else is here? He asked. Nobody. That was a child's cough. Every child in this town coughs. The air is bad near the lagoon. Then, why did you just move your body to block my view of the hallway? Abena did not answer. She had learned long ago that lies were useless against a man who had been trained to detect them since childhood. Kwame's father had made him memorize the micro-expressions of deception when he was 12 years old. There was no twitch she could hide. So she did something else. She stepped forward into his space and put the machete flat against his chest. You have 30 seconds to tell me why you're here. Then I start swinging. Kwame reached into his coat slowly, so she would not cut him, and pulled out a photograph. A woman dead. Abena recognized her face. Essie, her former bodyguard, the woman who had promised to take Abena's location to her grave. Yiwon's men found her 2 days ago, Kwame said. She talked before she died. She told them everything, the town, the house, the children. The children. The word landed like a bullet. Kwame did not know. He could not know. The bodyguard had only known about Abena's location, not about the twins, but he had said the children as if the word meant something specific. How do you know there are children? Abena asked. Because Yiwon told our father before he died. Our father told me on his deathbed. 3 years ago, Abena. You have been a mother for 7 years, and I have known for 3. The machete lowered, not because she wanted to lower it, because her arms had forgotten how to hold anything. "You knew," she whispered. "I knew. You knew and you did nothing. I knew and I built a wall around this town, so thick that one could not get within 50 kilometers without me knowing. I knew and I paid your landlord's taxes and your children's school fees and the salary of every market woman who reports to me weekly on your safety." Abena's legs gave out. She did not fall dramatically. She simply sat down on the floor of her own kitchen, the machete clattering beside her, and stared at a man she had loved and fled and hidden from for more than half a decade. "You've been watching me," she said. "Protecting you. That's the same thing." "No," Kwame said, and for the first time his voice cracked. "Just a little, just enough. Watching is what you do to an enemy. Protecting is what you do to something you would die for." He knelt down in front of her. His expensive trousers touched the dirt floor. He did not seem to notice. "Where are my children, Abena?" She took him to the back room. There was no point in lying anymore. The fever had made the decision for her. Kofi was burning up, his small body curled around a stuffed rabbit that had once been white and was now mostly gray. Adwoa lay on the other mattress, her breathing shallow, her dark hair spread across a pillow she had embroidered herself, little red flowers, uneven stitches, a child's proud work. Kwame stopped in the doorway. He had walked into ambushes without hesitation. He had watched his father kill a man with a letter opener and felt nothing. He had signed death warrants over breakfast and finished his coffee. But this, 2 small beds, drawings on the wall, a pair of tiny sandals by the door, this stopped him completely. "Which one is which?" he asked. "Kofi is on the left, Adwoa on the right." "Kofi, born on Friday." "You remembered." "I remembered everything." He stepped closer to the boy. "He has my nose. He has your stubbornness too. Last week he refused to eat for an entire day because I told him he could not name the stray dog General." "What did he name it?" "President." Kwame laughed, actually laughed. The sound was so foreign to Abena's ears that she almost did not recognize it. In 7 years of hiding, she had never once allowed herself to imagine what his laugh would sound like in this room. Then Kofi opened his eyes. The boy looked at his mother first, that automatic glance of a child seeking reassurance. Then he looked at the stranger kneeling beside his bed. "Are you the father who died?" Kofi whispered, "or the father who left?" Kwame's hand froze halfway to the boy's forehead. Abena had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. She had imagined every possible question her children might ask, every answer she might give. She had prepared lies and half-truths and carefully constructed stories about a father who was a sailor, a soldier, a man who loved them but could not stay. None of those answers felt possible now. "He did not leave," Abena said. "I took you away, and he did not know about you until tonight." Kofi processed this with the terrifying seriousness of a 7-year-old, who had already learned that adults could not be trusted. "So you're the one who lied," he said to his mother. Then to Kwame, "And you're the one who didn't look hard enough." Kwame turned to Abena. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were the eyes of a man who had just been punched in a place he did not know he had. "Smart," he said quietly. "He gets that from you. He gets everything from me. You haven't earned credit yet." "Then let me start." He picked up Kofi's hand. The boy did not pull away and pressed it to his own cheek. His skin was rough from the flight, from the sleepless nights, from the 3 years of knowing and waiting. "I am Kwame," he said. "I am your father, and I am going to make you well. Then I am going to keep you safe. Then I am going to spend the rest of my life proving that I deserve to be in this room." Kofi studied him for a long moment. Then he pulled his hand back. "The general needs water," he said. "The dog, he's outside." "I'll get it." "You don't know where the bowl is." "Then show me." Kofi looked at his mother. She nodded. The boy climbed out of bed, wobbly, feverish but determined, and took his father's hand. They walked out together, Kofi in his 2 large pajamas, Kwame in his 60 million won coat, the dog. A mangy yellow thing tied to a post in the yard, barked twice and then wagged its tail. Abena watched through the window. She had spent 7 years building a wall around her heart where Kwame was concerned, brick by brick. Every time she missed him, she added another layer. Every time the children asked about their father, she reinforced the mortar. Now the wall was cracking, not because she wanted it to, because her son was showing a stranger where the water bowl was, and the stranger was kneeling in the dirt to fill it, and he was doing it the way she had always imagined he would, carefully, gently, like a man who had been waiting for this moment his entire life. You cannot love him again, she told herself. You left for a reason. But the reason had just walked out of her kitchen holding her son's hand, and the reason had a name, and the reason was Heroine, Kwame's younger half-brother, the man who wanted the throne, the man who had been hunting her for 3 years, the man who now knew exactly where she was. Kwame returned to the kitchen alone. Kofi had been convinced to go back to bed after extracting a promise that his father would teach him how to drive a car, someday. Someday was not a word Kwame used lightly. He did not make promises he could not keep, but the boy's eyes had been so hopeful, so hungry for a future, and Kwame had found himself saying yes before he could calculate the risk. The dog is sick too, he said to Abena. You're running a hospital here. I'm running a survival operation. They're different. Not anymore. He sat down across from her at the small wooden table. Heroine has men on every road out of this town. He cut the phone lines 2 hours ago. The only reason he hasn't come through that door is because he wants me to find you first. Why? Because he wants to watch me choose. Abena understood immediately. That was the curse of having spent years inside that world. She never needed things explained twice. If you protect me and the children, you're choosing love over the empire. Heroine tells the captains, they call a vote and you're out. And if I hand you over, then I die. My children become orphans or weapons, and you become a man who killed the mother of his children to keep a throne. Kwame nodded slowly. Either way, I lose something I cannot replace. Then why did you come? Why not let Heroine's men do the dirty work and pretend you never knew? He looked at her then, really looked, not the way a cartel heir looks at a former asset, the way a man looks at the only woman who ever made him forget that he was supposed to be cold. Because 3 years ago, on my father's deathbed, he told me the truth. He told me about the blood oath, about the Nigerian cartel, about the promise he made that any female child born to my bloodline would be betrothed to their son. Abena went pale. He knew, she whispered. Your father knew about Idwawa. He knew before you did. He had doctors monitoring you without your knowledge. When you fled, he let you go not because he wanted to protect you, but because he wanted to protect the asset. A girl child raised outside the empire, hidden from the Nigerians, could be produced at the right moment as a bargaining chip. Abena stood up so fast the table scraped the floor. You son of a bitch! You knew your father was planning to sell my daughter, and you sat on that information for 3 years. I sat on it because I was trying to find a way to break the oath, without starting a war that would kill us all. And did you find a way? Kwame was silent. That's what I thought. She grabbed the machete again. Get out of my house. Take your protection and your promises and your fucking watch and get out. Abena. I said get out. She raised the blade. Her hand was steady, but her eyes were wet. 7 years, she thought. 7 years of hiding, of starving, of watching my children cough in the dark. And the whole time, his family was waiting to harvest my daughter like a crop. Kwame did not move. I am not my father, he said. You carry his blood. You wear his empire like a second skin. I am not my father. He stepped closer to the blade. My father saw Edwoa as a contract. I see her as my daughter, and I will burn every last brick of the Mensequan empire to the ground before I let anyone put a hand on her. Words. Then let me prove it. He reached into his coat again. This time he pulled out a small leather pouch. He placed it on the table. Inside was a jade bead bracelet, or what remained of it. 6 beads on a broken string. Abena recognized it immediately. She was wearing the other half around her own wrist, 6 beads on a leather cord, the half he had given her the night before she fled. You kept yours, she said. I never took it off. Liar, there are 12 beads in the full bracelet. I have 6. You have 6, and yours are on a new string. Kwame smiled, that almost smile again. The old string broke 5 years ago. I was in a meeting with the heads of 3 families when the beads scattered across the floor. I stopped negotiating. I got on my hands and knees. I picked up every single one. Why? Because they were the only proof I had that you were real. The fever broke for both children at 4 in the morning. Abena did not sleep. She sat between their mattresses, a cool cloth in each hand, and watched their temperatures fall degree by degree. Kwame sat in the doorway, his back against the frame, his eyes never leaving her. They did not speak. There was nothing left to say that could not be communicated in the small gestures. The way she passed him a fresh cloth without looking, the way he held it to Kofi's forehead without being asked, the way their hands brushed once and neither pulled away. At dawn, Edwoa opened her eyes. She looked at Kwame, then at her mother, then back at Kwame. You have the same sad eyes as my brother, she said. I have the same eyes as you, he replied. Edwoa considered this. Then she reached out her small hand and touched his face. Stay, she said. It was not a question. Kwame looked at Abena. She nodded, one small nod that cost her everything. Okay, he said, I'll stay. God knows there are moments in this life when the only thing holding us together is a single word: stay, wait, breathe. Tonight, if you are the one who has been standing in the doorway, watching the people you love fight through their fevers and their fears, may you feel the weight of your own courage. May you know that staying is not weakness. May you be protected in every room you enter, and may the walls you've built around your heart finally learn to hold a door. If this story touched something in you, say Amen. And if you want more stories where love and danger share the same breath, subscribe. You belong here. The morning brought heat and the sound of engines. Kwame heard them first, the low growl of vehicles moving too slowly, too deliberately. He was at the window before Abena finished pouring water into the kettle. How many? She asked. 3 SUVs, maybe 12 men, Yeone's personal guard. They're early. He's impatient. Kwame pulled out his phone, no signal. They cut the tower overnight. We could run. Where? The roads are blocked. The lagoon is too shallow for a boat. The only way out is through them. Abena looked at her children. Kofi was sitting up now, his fever gone, his eyes bright with the terrible curiosity of a child who did not understand danger. Edwoa was braiding her own hair methodically, the way she did when she was nervous. She knows, Abena thought. She has always known more than I wanted her to. There's a way, Abena said quietly. The market women, my mother's network, they have a route through the mangroves. It's dangerous, snakes, quicksand, men who patrol for smugglers, but it's possible. Show me. They went to the back of the house. Abena pulled up a loose floorboard and retrieved a hand-drawn map on yellowed paper. The route was marked in her mother's handwriting, small X's for danger, circles for safe houses, arrows for the direction of the tides. My mother drew this 20 years ago, Abena said. She used it to move gold for your father before he consolidated the routes. Your mother worked for my father. She worked for herself. Your father was just one of her clients. Abena traced the route with her finger. If we leave now, we can reach the Togolese border by nightfall, but we'll have to travel light. No luggage, no supplies beyond water and medicine. The children can't walk that far. They won't have to. There's a fisherman at the edge of the mangroves who owes my mother a debt. He'll take us halfway in his pirogue. Kwame studied the map. In the other room, the engines grew louder. You've been planning this, he said, not just for today. For years. Every woman who raises children in secret plans 10 different ways to disappear. This is just the one I never had to use. Until now. Until now. He folded the map and put it in his pocket. Then he took her hand, her left hand, the one wearing the jade beads he had given her 7 years ago. When this is over, he said, I am going to marry you, properly, with your mother's blessing and my grandmother's disapproval and a ceremony that lasts 3 days. Kwame, I am going to give our children a name that means something. I am going to buy you a house with a garden and a dog that is not named after a military rank. I am going to watch you grow old and annoying, and I am going to be grateful every single day that you let me stay. Abena wanted to laugh. She wanted to cry. She wanted to tell him that he was a fool, that there was no after this, that men like him did not get gardens and dogs and growing old. But the engines were at the gate now, and his hand was warm, and for the first time in 7 years, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she had been wrong about what was possible. Pack the children's things, she said. I'll hold them off as long as I can. You can't hold off 12 armed men with a machete. Watch me. The first SUV crashed through the gate at 8:17 a.m. Abena was standing in the yard. The machete was in her right hand. Her left hand was pressed against her chest, feeling the jade beads through her dress. The SUV stopped. 3 men got out. Then 3 more. Then Heroine himself, tall, elegant, dressed in a white linen shirt that probably cost more than Abena's entire house. He had Kwame's eyes but none of his restraint. Abena, he said, spreading his arms. You look terrible. Motherhood does not agree with you. Heroine, you look the same, still compensating for something. His smile did not waver. That was what made him dangerous. He could take an insult and return it wrapped in silk. Where is my brother? Gone. He left an hour ago. Said something about a meeting in Accra. Liar. Prove it. Heroine walked past her into the house. His men followed. Abena did not try to stop them. She had moved the children to the mangrove path 10 minutes ago. Kwame was waiting with them at the first marker. The house was empty except for her. But Heroine was not stupid. He went straight to the back room, saw the 2 small mattresses, the drawings on the wall, the children's sandals by the door. He picked up one of the sandals, held it to his nose like he was smelling a flower. Twins, he said, a boy and a girl. The girl is the one I need. She's not here. I know, that's why you're still breathing. He tossed the sandal back onto the floor. Where did Kwame take them? I don't know. Abena, 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 Abena. He walked toward her, slow and deliberate. You and I have known each other for a long time. I have always admired your loyalty, even when it was misplaced. But loyalty to a dead empire is just nostalgia. And nostalgia is a luxury for people who are not currently standing in front of me with a machete they are too afraid to swing. He was close now, close enough that she could see the small scar on his chin, the one he got from a broken bottle in a bar fight when he was 19, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive, something designed to mask the rot underneath. The blood oath, he said, is still binding. My father signed it. Your father, Kwame's father, signed it. The Nigerian cartel has been waiting 8 years for their bride. Do you know what they will do if we do not deliver her? Kill you, probably. Kill everyone, not just me, not just Kwame, every man, woman, and child who has ever done business with the Mensakwan family. They will burn us out of existence, and they will start with the twins." He took the machete from her hand. She let him, not because she was afraid, because she had seen something over his shoulder. Kwame coming back through the back door, silent, furious. "So here is what is going to happen," Yiwon continued, oblivious. "You are going to tell me where the children are. I am going to take the girl. You and the boy will be allowed to live somewhere far away, somewhere quiet. And Kwame will finally understand that love is a liability he cannot afford." "Yiwon." The voice came from behind him, quiet, controlled, the voice of a man who had already decided what was going to happen next. Yiwon turned, saw his brother standing in the kitchen doorway, his hands empty, his face unreadable. "You were supposed to be on the mangrove path," Yiwon said. "I changed my mind." "The children." "Safe, hidden, somewhere you will never find them." Yiwon laughed. "You think a few mangroves will stop my men? I think you underestimate what a mother will do to protect her children." Kwame stepped closer. "And I think you have forgotten who you are speaking to." "I know exactly who I am speaking to. A man who cannot pull the trigger. A man who has spent 15 years learning to be cold and failed at the first real test. You had 3 years to kill me, brother. 3 years to eliminate the threat. And instead, you watched. You waited. You protected a woman who did not want your protection and children you were too afraid to claim." Kwame said nothing. He simply walked past Yiwon, past the men with their guns, and stood beside Abena. "You're right," he said. "I was afraid. I was afraid of what my father made me. I was afraid of what I would become if I let myself love something I could not control. I was afraid of being soft in a world that punishes softness." "And now?" Kwame looked at Abena. She saw something in his eyes that she had never seen before, not in all the years she had known him, not in the penthouse in Seoul, not in the safe houses and the secret meetings and the stolen nights. "Peace. Now I am not afraid anymore," he said, "because I have held my son's hand, and I have heard my daughter's voice, and I have realized that there is nothing in this empire, nothing in this world worth more than the sound of their breathing." Yiwon's smile finally faltered. "Then you are a fool," he said, "and fools die first." He raised his hand. His men raised their guns. And then the market women arrived. They came from everywhere, 50 women, maybe more, emerging from the alleyways and the doorways and the gaps between buildings. They carried cooking pots and rolling pins and fishing gaffs. They carried the quiet fury of women who had been protecting secrets for generations. At their front was Abena's mother. She was 73 years old. She walked with a cane, and she had spent 40 years building a network of information and loyalty that made cartel intelligence look like children's gossip. "Yiwon," she said, "you are standing on land that belongs to my daughter. You are threatening children who carry my blood, and you are doing it in broad daylight, which means you are either very brave or very stupid." "Old woman." "I am not finished." She stepped closer. "You have exactly 60 seconds to put your guns down and leave this town. If you do not, every woman in this square will testify that they saw you draw first. And even your father's captains cannot protect you from a dozen witnesses who all tell the same story." Yiwon looked at his men. They looked at the women. The math was simple: 50 women versus 12 armed men. The men would win the fight, but they would lose the war. Because every single one of those women had a brother, a husband, a son in the cartel's supply chain. If they testified, Yiwon's operation would crumble. "You think this is over?" Yiwon said to Kwame. "I think it is just beginning." "This is not over. I will find the children. I will deliver the girl. And when I do, I will send you her finger in a box." Yiwon turned and walked back to his SUV. His men followed. The vehicles reversed through the broken gate and disappeared down the road. The women did not disperse. They stayed, forming a ring around the house, A human wall that no enemy could penetrate without leaving a trail of witnesses. Abena's mother walked to her daughter and took her face in her hands. "You did well," she said. "I almost lost them. But you did not, and now you have help." She looked at Kwame, studied him the way she studied everything, with the patient, unforgiving gaze of a woman who had survived by never trusting too quickly. "You are the father," she said. "Yes." "Do you love my daughter?" "Yes." "Do you love the children?" "More than I have ever loved anything." "Then prove it, not with words, with years, with presence, with the small choices that nobody sees." Kwame nodded. "I intend to." Abena's mother held his gaze for a long moment. Then she smiled just a little and patted his cheek. "Good, because if you hurt them, I have 50 women who will help me hide your body in the mangroves." They reached the Togolese border at dusk. The fisherman's pirogue had been slow but steady, carrying them through the narrow channels of the mangroves, while Kofi slept against Kwame's chest, and Adwoa stared at the water with the quiet intensity of a child who was memorizing everything. The border crossing was a single wooden hut with a flag that had seen better days. The guard was asleep. Kwame paid him double to stay that way. On the other side there was a dirt road, a waiting car, and a driver who worked for Abena's mother. "Lisbon," Abena said. "That's where we're going." "Lisbon," Kwame repeated. "I have an apartment there, nothing fancy. Just a small place I bought years ago in case I ever needed to disappear." "You've been planning your own escape route." "Everyone in my family has an escape route. The difference is, most of them are planning to run alone." He looked at the children. Kofi was awake now, watching his father with eyes that held too much wisdom. Adwoa had finally stopped braiding her hair and was instead drawing something in the condensation on the car window, a stick-figure family. 4 people, a dog. "General is not coming," Kofi said. "We'll get another dog," Kwame replied. "It won't be the same." "No, it won't, but that doesn't mean it won't be good." Kofi considered this. Then he nodded, a small, serious nod that made him look exactly like his father. "Okay," the boy said, "but the new dog has to have a good name." "What would you suggest?" "Something strong, something that means something." "How about Victory?" Kofi wrinkled his nose, too obvious. Kwame laughed. Abena watched him laugh, and she felt something crack inside her chest, something she had been holding together with willpower and fear and the desperate need to survive. "He is good with them," she thought. "He is better than I imagined." She reached for his hand. He took it. Their fingers intertwined over the center console, the jade beads clicking together softly. The car pulled onto the main road. Behind them, the border guard was snoring. Ahead, Lisbon was 12 hours away. And somewhere behind them, somewhere in the mangroves or the market square or the cartel's marble halls, Heroine was already planning his next move. The airport came too soon. Lisbon was supposed to be safe. That was the lie Abena had told herself during the long drive, during the ferry crossing, during the sleepless night in a safe house outside Seville. Lisbon was neutral ground. Lisbon was far from the cartel's reach. But Heroine had men everywhere. They were waiting at the departure terminal. Not in uniform, they were too smart for that, but Abena recognized the shape of their jackets, the way they stood with their weight on their back feet, the way their eyes scanned the crowd without stopping. "Don't look," Kwame murmured. "Keep walking." "How many?" "6 that I can see, probably more in the parking garage." The children were between them, Kofi holding Kwame's hand, Adwoa holding Abena's. They had new clothes, new backpacks, new identities and new passports. Everything was supposed to be new. But the men were old, and they knew exactly who they were looking for. "We need to split up," Kwame said. "You take the children to gate 14, I'll draw them off." "Kwame." "There's no time to argue. The flight to London boards in 20 minutes. From London you can go anywhere. Anywhere but here. And you?" He stopped walking, turned to face her. In the fluorescent light of the airport terminal he looked tired, older than his years, but his eyes were clear. "I will find you," he said. "I have found you before, I will find you again." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have." He knelt down in front of the children. Kofi was crying silent tears, the kind that came from a boy who had been taught not to make noise. Adwoa was not crying. She was watching her father with that terrible stillness that Abena had never been able to read. "Kofi," Kwame said, "you are the man of the house now. Take care of your mother. Take care of your sister. And when I see you again, which I will, you are going to teach me how to play that game you invented with the stones." "Rock chess," Kofi whispered. "Rock chess, yes." Kwame hugged him, held him tight, then he turned to Adwoa. She did not hug him back. She simply looked at him and then she spoke. In Korean. "You are going to kill him," she said. Kwame froze. "You are going to kill Yi-won. I know because you have the same eyes as grandfather now, the eyes that have already decided." "Adwoa. I am not sad about it, I am not scared. I am telling you to be careful." She reached into her satchel, the small leather pouch she never let anyone touch, and pulled out a single jade bead, the one that had been missing from the bracelet, the one Kofi had hidden in her coat in the airport in Accra. "I found this," she said. "In Mama's things it was loose, I kept it safe." She pressed the bead into Kwame's palm. "It means return," she said. "Grandmother's bead, so you have to come back, those are the rules." Kwame closed his hand around the bead. His throat was too tight to speak. He stood up, looked at Abena. "Go," he said. "Kwame, go now, before I cannot let you." Abena took the children's hands. She walked toward gate 14. She did not look back. She did not look back. But Adwoa did. The parking garage was cold and smelled of exhaust. Kwame walked alone. He did not hide. He did not run. He walked with his hands in his pockets, his coat open, his face calm. Yi-won's men found him on the 3rd level. They surrounded him, 6 of them just as he had counted. "Where are the children?" one of them asked. "Safe." "Where?" "Somewhere you will never find them." The men exchanged glances. They were professionals. They did not enjoy this, but they had their orders. "The boss wants to see you," another man said. "Alive for now." "No." The word was quiet, final. Kwame pulled his hands from his pockets. His right hand held the jade bead, Adwoa's bead, the bead of return. His left hand was empty. But the men did not know that. "You have a choice," Kwame said. "You can take me to Yi-won and you can watch him try to break me. Or you can walk away right now and I will remember your faces. I will remember that you chose not to raise your hands against a father who just said goodbye to his children." Empty threats. "Are they?" Kwame smiled, that almost smile, the one that had terrified men twice his size. "My brother has been trying to kill me for 15 years. He has failed every single time. Not because I am smarter than him, although I am. Not because I am stronger, although I am. He has failed because he does not understand something fundamental about this world." "And what is that?" "Loyalty cannot be bought. It can only be earned. And I have spent 15 years earning the loyalty of every man in this garage." He looked at each of them, one by one. "You know my brother. You know what he is. You know that if he takes the throne, the first thing he will do is purge everyone who ever worked for me, and that includes you." The men shifted, uncomfortable. "So here is my offer," Kwame continued. "Walk away. Tell Yi-won you could not find me. I will pay you double whatever he is paying you. And when this is over, when I am sitting on the throne that should have been mine from the beginning, you will have a place at my table. Lord. Or you can try to take me now. 6 of you. 1 of me. Those are good odds, but I promise you not all 6 of you will walk away from this garage. And the ones who do will spend the rest of their lives wondering if I meant what I said about remembering their faces." Silence. Then the first man lowered his gun. Then the second. Then the third. They walked away, one by one, until Kwame was alone in the parking garage, surrounded by empty cars and the echo of his own breathing. He looked at the jade bead in his palm. "Return," he thought. "I am coming back. I just have to do one thing first." He pulled out his phone, dialed a number he had memorized but never used. The voice that answered was old, gravelly Korean. "Grandmother," Kwame said, "I need your help." The flight to London took 2 hours. Abena did not sleep. She watched the clouds pass beneath the window and tried not to imagine what was happening in the parking garage. Kofi was curled in the seat beside her, his thumb in his mouth, a habit he had broken years ago now returned. Adwoa was drawing again, 4 stick figures, a dog, and now a 5th figure smaller standing slightly apart. "Who is that?" Abena asked. "Yiwan," Adwoa said. "Why is he there?" "Because he's family. Even if he's bad, he's still family." Abena did not know what to say to that. Her daughter was 7 years old, and she already understood things that most adults spent their lives trying to forget. The plane landed. They walked through the terminal, mother, son, daughter, 3 ghosts in a city of millions. And at the baggage claim, standing by the carousel with a coat that was too warm for London and eyes that had seen too much, was Kwame. He was holding a small box. "I told you I would find you," he said. Abena ran to him. She did not care who was watching. She did not care about the empire, the blood oath, the men who were still hunting them. She ran to him and she held him and she did not let go. Kofi wrapped his arms around his father's legs. Adwoa stood back, watching, her arms crossed over her chest. "You're late," she said. "Traffic." "From the parking garage." "Something like that." Kwame knelt down in front of her, opened the box. Inside was a new bracelet, 12 jade beads on a fresh silk cord. The beads had been cleaned, polished, wrist-strung by the same artisan who had made the original for Kwame's mother 30 years ago. "Grandmother helped," Kwame said. "She said the beads needed to be whole again, for luck." Adwoa looked at the bracelet, then at her father. "Does this mean you're staying?" Kwame looked up at Abena. She nodded just once, just enough. "Yes," he said, "I'm staying." He put the bracelet on his daughter's wrist. It was too big. It would be years before it fit, but Adwoa held it against her small arm like it was made of gold. "Okay," she said, "then I guess you're our father now for real." Kwame gathered his children in his arms. Abena knelt beside them. The 4 of them, 5, counting the ghost of Yiwan that would always linger, held each other in the fluorescent light of the baggage claim. Outside, the London rain began to fall. And somewhere in Seoul, in a marble penthouse overlooking the Han River, Kwame's grandmother picked up the phone and began making the calls that would change everything. The war was not over. It had only just begun. But for now, for this one moment, they were together. And that was enough. She raised his children in secret. He found them when the world was burning. And in the end, the only thing that broke him completely was not the danger, not the betrayal, not even the blood. It was the sound of his daughter saying "stay" in a language he thought she would never learn. What would you have done in Kwame's place? Would you have renounced the empire for love? Or would you have walked away to protect them from a war you could not win? There is no right answer. There is only the choice you make when the knock comes at the door. Tell us in the comments. And if this story moved you, like and subscribe, because the war is not over, and the next chapter begins now.